Yesterday, I reported on the Democratic U-turn to finally provide funding for border security. And we got an update. It's more just so the in-depth version of what's going on with Democrats, but I thought it would be really important to look at because, from the Hill, House Democrats are close to finalizing border aid bill. House Democrats on Wednesday said they will move forward next week with funding legislation that addresses the surge of migrants at the southern border. Democratic lawmakers say they are close to an agreement, which has been stalled for weeks in response to the Trump administration's request for $4.5 billion in emergency funds to help agencies handle the influx of migrants arriving at the U.S.-Mexico border. Let me stop now. I wanted to give you the gist of it, but now let's talk about why this is so important. It's not just about finally border security being taken care of. It's about how wrong Ocasio-Cortez is. It's about how wrong Nadler is. And all of these people that jumped on the bandwagon to defend Ocasio-Cortez's insane rhetoric about concentration camps, you can eat your words. Because now the Democrats are finally recognizing they have to do something about this. Plain and simple. It also shows us that they live in some kind of magical fantasy land. Look, there are fantasy lands for various different tribes. I know people who are flat earthers. They live in a weird world. And they believe ridiculous things. There are people who live in crazy conspiracy nonsense worlds about reptiles and, holes in Antarctica, whatever. But there is an objective reality which we can look at to the best of our abilities. When Ocasio-Cortez goes on the internet and says something nonsensical, and then everyone piles on because they're all about tribalism, you can recognize this group of people, they don't live in reality. They are regular Democrats, regular conservatives. They live in reality. There are absolutely fringe people on the right, but there are a lot of people on the left. And I always find it really funny. There was a thread on a social justice Reddit where they were talking about how conservatives live in an alternate reality. And then they want to talk about weird conspiracy theories. And I'm like, if you think conservatives are the people who believe weird conspiracy theories, you live in an alternate reality. And it's actually this really interesting inversion where they look at the border and they see World War II Germany. The Democrats, like the actual, regular old, most Democrats, are now capitulating and saying, okay, fine, there's a problem, we'll deal with it. But they still, here's the point I'm trying to make, and then we'll read more of the story. Ocasio-Cortez clearly doesn't live in objective reality. If she's going to double down on her comments, and she has, after being called out by even Chuck Todd, she's doubled down. That'll be the next segment, though. I got a bigger story coming up in terms of politics, but sure. Even after all this, there are people who live in a weird social media Wall-E world of some sort, where it's like everything's Skittles and rainbows, and then outside is the fringe alt-right coming to get you, and that's just not reality. So let's see what the Democrats are doing. They say the developments came as the Senate Appropriations Committee advanced bipartisan legislation Wednesday in response to the administration's request. That measure is expected to hit the Senate floor next week. House Democrats say they intend to advance their own bill next week before lawmakers leave town for the Independence Day recess. Rep. Nita Lowey, a Democrat from New York, head of the House Appropriations Committee, said she and her colleagues have concerns with the Senate bill as currently written. We're continuing to work diligently to finalize legislation to address the humanitarian crisis at the southern border, with a view to bringing a House bill to the floor next week. A Democratic aide said there are concerns regarding protections for migrant children and the inclusion of Defense Department funding in the Senate bill. The measure would provide $145 million to the Army, Marine Corps, Air Force, and Army National Guard for their involvement in the border response, including medical assistance and mobile surveillance. I don't see what's wrong with that. Please explain it. The House is in the process of plowing through its annual spending bills for fiscal 2020, which starts October 1st. The Republicans have been hammering Democrats for weeks of inaction on the president's emergency request. They argue the money is needed by early July to ensure the Office of Refugee Resettlement, a division of the Department of Health and Human Services, doesn't fall short on funding. They're literally days away from running out of money to have the funding they need to take care of these young children with serious health issues, said House Minority Whip Steve Scalise. House Majority Leader Steny Hoyer said Democrats don't want to leave here without humanitarian resources to handle what is a humanitarian crisis at the border. He said Democrats might want to move forward with their own bill if Republicans can't get on board. Oh, so now it's the Republicans who can't get on board. Sure. There's a crisis and we need to deal with it, and we want to deal with it, Hoyer said. Wow. After all this time, Trump requested, I believe it was $4.5 billion, a little while ago, and the Democrats have repeatedly obstructed. So good on them for finally now stepping up, but it's kind of funny when you see them say Trump made the problem worse, but we're going to give Trump money anyway. And now Going back to that point about the alternate reality, I think there's a trickle-down effect from the inability to solve problems from all politicians that trickles down to those who live in weird worlds. When you have an influx of migrants, and then you take a lot of these migrants and refugees and just place them in a small town, you now all of a sudden have a small community seeing rapid change and a bunch of people they never met forced on their community, and they don't understand this. I certainly believe that we are humans, we can all learn to get along, but I'm not surprised they're shocked their community has changed rapidly, and that trickles down due to the inability to solve the problem to more of the fringe right positions, alt-right, whatever you want to call it. On the left, however, the Democrats don't give Trump what he asks for, resulting in children getting sick and dying, which is rather tragic and unfortunate. And then what happens? Ocasio-Cortez says, oh my God, Trump's a fascist and they're operating concentration camps on the border. Well, the only reason the conditions are bad is because the Democrats didn't provide the funding that was requested. And so here we are in this position now where you have the wackos on Twitter recycling this insane rhetoric, all because the Democrats didn't want to get on board with Trump in the first place. Look, you don't have, I don't know what the problem is, but I'll tell you what, they can blame Trump for making it worse. That doesn't make sense because now they're going to give him the money he's asking for. If you thought he made it worse, why would you give him more money? I think what we're seeing here is the sad truth, that if the Democrats stepped up in the first place, we wouldn't be facing this problem. But I made all those points, so let's read on and just see where we're at so far. GOP lawmakers have been shown draft text for the bill Democrats intend to put on the floor next week, according to a Democratic aide. A major sticking point in the House stems from the progressive wing of the Democratic Party, there we go, where lawmakers are concerned that the bill could end up funding the administration's deportation policies. This is absolutely insane to me, and this is exactly what I'm talking about. These progressive, Twitterati, fringe leftists who live in some magical reality they made up. Appropriators are trying to assuage those concerns by ensuring the funding can't be used beyond the purposes of humanitarian aid. We should provide the humanitarian assistance necessary to change the conditions along the border, particularly as it relates to immigrant children. Look, I want the children to be in a better circumstance, but you can't just keep throwing money at the problem, and this is the big problem Democrats always have when it comes to government programs. Here's how I explained it, and if you're a frequent listener to my videos, government programs can work, right? It makes sense when the government steps up and says, we're going to put a Band-Aid on this wound. You need something to help the wound heal. But what happens a week later? Do they peel the Band-Aid off, clean the wound, and apply a new bandage? Or say it's healed and we're good to go? No. They slap another Band-Aid on the festering wound and they keep doing it. We've got a problem. Kids are getting sick and dying. People are getting sick. We don't have the resources at these facilities. Okay, conditions are bad. How about you give Trump the money he asked for these facilities? The New York Times agrees, right? Again, not just coming from the top of my head. It's coming from major publications, the editorial boards. You didn't do it. Well, do it now. What happens? You end up with the progressives saying, you know what? We don't want to deport people. We just want humanitarian aid. Great. Do you know what's going to happen then? People will still be incentivized to come, okay? And I get it. America's great. But basically what you're saying is, if you come, we will provide you with clean, safe accommodation. So they're flying from Africa, I kid you not, they go Congo to Angola to Brazil, and then traveling up through Brazil, through Mexico, Central America, and then coming to our border because you have rhetoric like this. You need to have both. We provide aid to those who are here now and figure out what to do to make sure that they're not in squalor and dangerous conditions, but we must disincentivize the people from coming here. So you do need to send people back if they're trying to enter the country illegally. Of course, the Democrats they want their cake and they want to eat it too. Well, I'll tell you what's going to happen, and I think most of you watching probably get this. If the Democrats provide funding for humanitarian aid without the ability to enforce the border or deport people who are here illegally, I'll tell you what, more people will come, more people will expect that handout, and it will only make the problem worse. Teach a man to fish or feed a man to fish, right? As the saying goes. If you're just saying free stuff at the border, we'll take care of you. It won't be perfect, but hey, it's not going to be so bad. You might get into America. Then why wouldn't they come? The problem we have now is the Democrats need to figure out how to work with Republicans to disincentivize this behavior. Trump wants to build a wall. I think the wall is a rudimentary solution to the problem. Sure, people won't be able to get past the wall, but they'll go other ways. And there will eventually be wall breaches. And while, we've seen borders built in Europe and other places, yes, they've worked. I think we need a comprehensive package here. We need policy, We need border security, we need law enforcement, and we need humanitarian aid. All of these things have to come together. We can't just do one. And I gotta admit, though, it sounds like what we're seeing now is the Democrats and the Republicans, for the most part, have a bipartisan bill that could do both, but it's the far-left Democrats that are going to obstruct because they don't want border enforcement. Welcome to, politics in 2019. Like I mentioned in the beginning, these people live in some alternate reality where they don't think about the ramifications for their actions. Should the U.S. taxpayer be funding the humanitarian aid for these people? The answer is a resounding yes. But it's very simple. You can't stop there. Plain and simple. I think we should help people. I do. I think we have a problem. I partially blame the Democrats because they've ignored this and they've refused to fund it. We can't leave people living in these horrifying conditions. If they're not concentration camps, that's absurd. They're temporary detention facilities. Yes, parents are being separated from their kids. I think that's detestable, but I don't know what else you do when people, are being held. What do? When we know for a fact, it's been reported in the press that there are people who have children who aren't theirs, what do? We want to stop traffickers? Great. We can't just assume the kids belong to the parents. It's complicated. But please, can we do something? This is the problem with these far left Democrat types, right? The position Trump has on the border is akin to, it's a bit more bold. It's similar, but more, I don't want to say it's worse. It's more expensive, and it's a step up from where the Democrats were in 2007 or 8. Democrats say we want to build a border barrier. Trump says I want a big, beautiful 30-foot high wall made of concrete, and then he he gives in and says, okay, we'll do a bollard fence. Fine. It's a very similar position to Democrats 10 years ago. But where are the progressives going? You want to act like Trump is going far right and he's going crazy. He's talking like Bill Clinton did, man. Deporting immigrants. Obama, they called him deporter in chief. So everyone talks about the Republicans going off the deep end, and I'm like, dude, I gotta say, man, securing our borders, it's a majority American position, and it's only the progressive Democrats who are obstructing. Okay, I don't want to make this video super long. The point is, you heard me rant about where we're at right now, and it seems like the main issue is, if come 2020, a lot of these far left types get reelected into Congress, coming up in the next Senate elections, if we keep seeing this far left wave, it's going to get bad. They don't seem to understand how economics works, and it makes sense. They're socialists. Not all of them, but they're, Cortez is a democratic socialist. They seem to think that a command economy can control the flow of value, and it can't. No committee is going to have the computational power of a distributed system of people determining what is or isn't valuable. However, a laissez-faire system of people just spending will spend things eventually in really dangerous ways, and you'll see the rise of monopolies and powerful oligopolies that restrict speech, and it's happening. We need a happy medium. The socialists are wrong, but guess what? We don't really have that many laissez-faire capitalists in Congress, in the Senate. They're mostly like moderate right-wing people, and there's moderate left-wing Democrats, but now we have this left-wing of socialist far-left types who are just going to, you look at California. They've got a massive homeless problem. What do? Provide funding for healthcare for illegal immigrants. You're not going to pass your housing bill to house your own citizens. This is the problem I see with the far left types, okay? Democrats, the moderate ones, have finally come around to support, solving the crisis. Good on them. They were late to the party, but at least they're here. Now the progressives aren't. So you know what? I'm not surprised. Stick around. I got another video coming up, which is going to get the next video coming up at 4 p.m. on my main channel. For those on the podcast, it's probably already played. But this is going to be about kind of the escalation and tensions, rhetoric, and political attacks and things like that. And this includes, conversation about immigration and AOC. So stick around, youtube.com/Timcast at 4 p.m. Eastern, and I will see you all there.